What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest stars finally has enough of a talk show host's constant jabs and underhanded comments? Tonight we're diving into the explosive confrontation between Mark Wahlberg and Jimmy Kimmel that ended with Wahlberg being kicked off the show in a moment that has the entire entertainment industry talking. This showdown reveals the ugly side of late-night television that networks don't want you to see. If you're tired of the fake smiles and rehearsed banter of talk shows, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below because we're about to expose what really happens when the cameras are rolling and a host pushes too far. The tension between Mark Wahlberg and Jimmy Kimmel had been brewing for years. What many viewers at home didn't realize was that behind the scenes, these two had a complicated history dating back to Wahlberg's early appearances on Kimmel's show. Sources close to Wahlberg revealed that he had grown increasingly frustrated with Kimmel's tendency to ambush guests with uncomfortable questions and situations purely for ratings. "Mark is a professional," said one insider from Wahlberg's production company. "He's always shown up prepared to promote his projects and engage with audiences genuinely. But there's only so much a person can take when someone repeatedly tries to undermine you for cheap laughs." The night of the incident started like any other late-night appearance. Wahlberg arrived at the studio to promote his latest film, a passion project he had been developing for years. The production had been challenging, with Wahlberg putting everything on the line financially and creatively. This wasn't just another blockbuster for him, it was personal. Backstage, crew members noticed immediately that something was off about Kimmel's demeanor. The host was unusually tense during pre-show preparations, snapping at staff and making last-minute changes to the segment questions without informing the guest or his team. "Jimmy was in rare form that night," one crew member confided. "We all know he can be difficult, but something was different. It felt like he was loading up for something big." When Wahlberg was introduced and walked onto the set, viewers at home might have noticed the slightly strained smile on Kimmel's face as they shook hands. What the camera didn't capture was Kimmel's whispered comment, "Let's see how you handle tonight." The interview began smoothly enough with standard questions about the new film. Wahlberg spoke passionately about the project, the challenges of production, and his hopes for audience reception. It was clear this film meant something special to him, representing years of personal investment. About 5 minutes into the segment, Kimmel's approach suddenly shifted. "So, Mark, I've been doing some research on this movie of yours," Kimmel said with a smirk that experienced viewers recognized as his signal that he was about to go for blood. "Sources tell me there were some real problems on set. I heard your director almost walked because of your, what did they call it, controlling behavior?" Wahlberg's expression flickered momentarily before he composed himself. "That's not accurate, Jimmy. We had creative discussions like any passionate team does, but we worked through everything professionally." Kimmel pressed on. "That's not what I heard. In fact, I've got some texts here from someone on your production team." He held up his phone, a move that visibly surprised Wahlberg. "Would you like me to read them?" The studio audience grew uncomfortably quiet. This wasn't the playful banter they had expected. There was something mean-spirited in Kimmel's approach, a calculated attempt to provoke rather than entertain. "I'm here to talk about the film, Jimmy, not gossip about private conversations taken out of context," Wahlberg responded, maintaining his composure despite the ambush. Kimmel's smile tightened. "Come on, Mark. Your reputation in the industry isn't exactly squeaky clean. People say you're difficult to work with. Is that why so many of your recent projects have underperformed?" At this point, the tension in the studio was palpable. Camera operators exchanged glances, and the show's producer stepped closer to the stage, sensing the interview was veering into dangerous territory. The audience, initially expecting the usual light-hearted celebrity chat, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Wahlberg took a deep breath before responding. "Look, Jimmy, I've always been straight with you and your audience. I work hard. I expect a lot from myself and the people around me because I respect the craft and the fans who pay to see our work. If that makes me difficult in someone's eyes, so be it. But I've never thrown anyone under the bus for entertainment value. The pointed comment wasn't lost on Kimmel or the audience. A few people actually applauded Wahlberg's response, which seemed to irritate Kimmel further. Well, speaking of throwing people under the bus, Kimmel continued, ignoring the warning signals from his producer, let's talk about your co-star in this film. There are rumors that you demanded certain scenes be reshot because you felt upstaged. Care to comment on that? The calculated attack was clearly designed to provoke a reaction, to create a viral moment at Wahlberg's expense. What Kimmel hadn't anticipated was Wahlberg's next move. Instead of responding directly to the accusation, Wahlberg calmly placed his microphone on the small table between them. You know what, Jimmy? I came here tonight out of respect for this show and the audience. I've appeared on your program multiple times over the years, always in good faith. But this, he gestured between them, this isn't an interview. It's an ambush, and it's disrespectful not just to me but to everyone who worked on this film. The audience erupted in surprised murmurs and scattered applause. Kimmel, clearly not expecting this response, attempted to regain control. Come on, Mark, it's just a question. Don't be so sensitive. We're just having a conversation here. No, we're not, Wahlberg replied firmly. A conversation involves mutual respect. You've clearly got an agenda tonight, and I'm not interested in being part of it. You want to create a moment at my expense, and honestly, I think your audience deserves better than that. The studio fell silent as Wahlberg's words hung in the air. For a moment it seemed like Kimmel might back down, perhaps apologize and steer the conversation back to safer territory. Instead, his expression hardened, the facade of the affable host dropping completely. That's rich coming from you, Kimmel said, his voice carrying an edge that shocked even his most loyal staff members. You want to talk about respect? Let's talk about how you treat crew members when cameras aren't rolling. I've got friends who've worked on your sets, Mark. They tell different stories. The producer was now frantically signaling from the side of the stage, drawing a finger across her throat in the universal sign to cut the segment. Kimmel ignored her completely, focused entirely on Wahlberg, seemingly determined to provoke a reaction that would generate headlines. You know what's really disrespectful, Mark? Coming on my show and acting like you're too good to answer legitimate questions. The audience isn't stupid. They know the difference between the image you sell and reality. Wahlberg glanced toward the increasingly uncomfortable audience, then back at Kimmel. Something shifted in his demeanor, not toward anger as Kimmel clearly hoped, but toward a calm resolve that commanded the room in a way Kimmel's provocations couldn't. You're right about one thing, Jimmy. The audience isn't stupid. Wahlberg turned slightly toward the crowd. They can see what's happening here, and so can everyone watching at home. A smattering of applause broke out, quickly growing louder. Kimmel's face flushed as he realized he was losing control not just of his guest, but of his audience as well. The late-night host wasn't accustomed to being challenged on his own stage, especially not by someone who refused to play into his hands by becoming visibly angry. We can cut this part out, Kimmel said with a dismissive wave, attempting to reassert control. Let's move on to something else. I heard you're working on a new project with director. No, Wahlberg interrupted firmly. I don't think you get to decide that we're moving on after what you just tried to do. You invited me here to talk about my film, then ambushed me with fabricated texts, tried to create conflict with my co-stars, and now you're making vague accusations about how I treat crews? Based on what, Jimmy? Anonymous sources? Gossip? Or did you just make it up for ratings? The audience's reaction was immediate, several people standing to applaud Wahlberg's refusal to be steamrolled. Even some of Kimmel's own staff were nodding in agreement, though they tried to hide it from their boss. Kimmel, clearly unaccustomed to losing the upper hand, especially on his own show, attempted to laugh it off. Come on, Mark. It's just entertainment. The audience loves a little drama. We're just having some fun here. Is that what this is to you? Fun? Wahlberg asked, his voice level but intense. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're willing to lie about and hurt people who've worked their hearts out on this project just for a viral clip. There are hundreds of hardworking people whose livelihoods depend on this film. Directors, producers, crew members, actors who've put everything into making something meaningful. And you want to damage that for what, Jimmy? A bump in your ratings? The producer was now on stage, approaching Kimmel, and whispering urgently in his ear. Kimmel brushed her off, his eyes never leaving Wahlberg's. "You're taking this way too personally," Kimmel said, though his usual smugness was faltering under the weight of the audience's changing loyalty. "This is just how these shows work. Everyone knows that." "Maybe that's the problem," Wahlberg replied. "Maybe that's exactly why people are tuning out of shows like this. Because they're tired of watching hosts tear people down instead of having genuine conversations. They're tired of the gotcha moments and manufactured conflict." Someone in the audience shouted, "He's right," followed by more applause. Kimmel's expression darkened as he realized he was losing the room entirely. "Look," Kimmel said, leaning forward with a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We've known each other a long time, Mark. I thought we could have some real talk here. If you can't handle a few tough questions, that's not what this is. And you know it," Wahlberg cut in. "There's a difference between tough questions and character assassination. I've done thousands of interviews, Jimmy. I've been asked difficult questions before, and I've always answered honestly. But what you're doing tonight isn't journalism or entertainment. It's just mean-spirited." One of the camera operators let out a low whistle, quickly silenced by a glare from Kimmel. The tension in the studio was unlike anything the regular audience members had experienced before. This wasn't the scripted, safely controversial content they were used to seeing. This was genuine conflict, raw and unfiltered. "You know what I think?" Kimmel said, abandoning all pretense of friendliness. "I think you're using this righteous act to avoid addressing the real issues. Your last 3 films underperformed. Critics are saying you've lost your touch. Your production company is struggling. Those are facts, Mark, not character assassination." Wahlberg's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, a momentary hurt quickly replaced by resolve. "If you wanted to discuss my career challenges, you could have asked directly instead of ambushing me with fake texts and rumors about conflicts with co-stars. I've never pretended my career is perfect. Every actor faces ups and downs. The difference is I don't try to climb back up by stepping on others." The implied criticism wasn't lost on anyone in the studio. Rumors about Kimmel's treatment of guests and staff had circulated in industry circles for years, usually dismissed as sour grapes from those who'd fallen victim to his particular brand of humor. But seeing Wahlberg stand his ground was causing many in the audience, and even some staff members, to reconsider those stories. "You know what?" Kimmel said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Maybe we should take a break. Clearly you came in with some kind of chip on your shoulder. Tonight, I came in expecting a professional conversation about a project I care deeply about," Wahlberg replied evenly. "You're the one who decided to make it personal." The producer was now frantically signaling to go to commercial, but Kimmel seemed determined to have the last word. "Well, if you feel that strongly about it, maybe this isn't the right show for you," Kimmel said, his tone making it clear this wasn't just about tonight's appearance, but potentially any future ones as well. "Maybe it isn't," Wahlberg agreed, surprising Kimmel with his calm acceptance. "But that's your loss, not mine. There are plenty of shows where hosts actually want to have real conversations instead of manufacturing drama." The audience erupted again, this time with even more enthusiasm. Several people stood up, clearly supportive of Wahlberg's stance. Kimmel's face flushed deeper, a vein visibly pulsing in his forehead as he realized he was being upstaged on his own show. "We're going to commercial," Kimmel announced abruptly, not even bothering to look at the camera. When we come back, we'll be joined by our next guest. As the on-air light dimmed, indicating they had cut to commercial, Wahlberg calmly removed his earpiece and stood up. The audience, realizing what was happening, began to protest. Someone shouted, "Let him stay!" followed by others joining in. Kimmel, now standing as well, stepped closer to Wahlberg, lowering his voice but not quite enough to prevent those nearby from hearing. "You think you can come on my show and lecture me about how to do my job? You're done here. Security will show you out." Wahlberg maintained his composure even as security approached from the side of the stage. "I don't need an escort, Jimmy. I can find my own way out." The audience continued their protests, many now standing. One woman near the front called out, "This is ridiculous! Let him speak!" Others joined in, creating a chorus of disapproval directed not at Wahlberg, but at Kimmel himself. Kimmel's producer rushed onto the stage, speaking urgently into her headset while trying to calm the increasingly agitated audience. The look she shot Kimmel made it clear. This situation was spiraling out of control, and it was entirely his doing. "Folks, please," the producer addressed the audience, her voice strained. "We need to continue with the show. We appreciate your cooperation." But the damage was done. Several audience members were already walking out in protest. Others had phones raised, capturing the unprecedented moment despite the strict no-recording policy. Wahlberg, now at the edge of the stage, turned back toward Kimmel. "You know, Jimmy, I've always believed that how you treat people when the cameras are off shows your true character. Tonight everyone got to see who you really are when things don't go your way." The statement hung in the air as Wahlberg exited, dignified despite the circumstances. Kimmel stood frozen, his usual quick wit failing him as he realized the profound shift that had just occurred, not just with this audience, but potentially with his broader viewership as well. When the on-air light illuminated again, Kimmel attempted to regain control, pasting on his trademark smile that now seemed hollow and forced. "Welcome back, everyone. Unfortunately, Mark had to leave, but we've got plenty more show for you tonight." His words were met with tepid applause, interspersed with audible murmurs of dissatisfaction. The energy in the studio had fundamentally changed. The curtain had been pulled back, revealing the manipulative machinery behind the friendly facade of late-night television. Backstage, Wahlberg was approached by several crew members who quietly expressed their support. "I've worked here 5 years, one sound technician whispered, "and I've seen him do this to guests before, but never someone who stood up to him like you did." Wahlberg's publicist was already fielding calls and messages. The incident, though not yet aired, was already generating buzz as audience members shared their accounts on social media. What had begun as a standard promotional appearance had transformed into something much more significant, a rare moment of authentic pushback against the contrived nature of celebrity interviews. Network executives gathered in a hurried meeting, debating whether to air the segment at all, knowing that editing it would be futile given how many witnesses had been present. Ultimately, they faced an impossible choice: broadcast the uncomfortable truth of what had transpired, or attempt to bury it and face accusations of censorship. By morning, clips of the confrontation had leaked online, spreading rapidly across social media platforms. Public opinion formed quickly and decisively, with support overwhelmingly favoring Wahlberg. Commenters praised his professionalism and courage in standing up to what many described as years of Kimmel's increasingly mean-spirited approach to comedy and interviews. Industry insiders weren't surprised. "Jimmy's behavior has been an open secret in Hollywood for years," revealed one veteran talk show producer who requested anonymity. "He cultivates this everyman image, but behind the scenes, it's a different story. What happened with Mark was inevitable. Someone was eventually going to call him out." The incident marked a turning point not just for Kimmel's show, but for the broader landscape of celebrity interviews. Viewers and industry professionals alike began questioning the ethics of ambush-style journalism disguised as entertainment, the power dynamics between hosts and guests, and the responsibility media figures have to the truth. As for Wahlberg, his stand against Kimmel's tactics earned him respect beyond what any carefully orchestrated publicity campaign could have achieved. His film, despite Kimmel's attempts to undermine it, opened to strong numbers, buoyed by audiences who appreciated not just his on-screen talent, but his off-screen integrity. In the end, what happened between Mark Wahlberg and Jimmy Kimmel transcended a simple talk show disagreement. It became a cultural moment that forced audiences to reconsider what they expect from entertainment, from celebrities, and from those who interview them. So what do you think about this situation? Was Wahlberg right to stand his ground, or should celebrities expect this kind of treatment when they sign up for interviews? And has this changed how you view late-night talk shows? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown of what really happens behind the scenes in Hollywood, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.